Hello and welcome to Discovering Grayslake, unveiling the stories and people that make our town so unique. I'm your host, David Wool, and I'm thrilled to bring you this new podcast that explores fascinating stories and experiences of local business owners and community leaders, right here where we call home. Grayslake Rehabilitation Center is a community-based private practice physical therapy provider. Do you know they have 13 clinical providers with various levels of specialties, including orthopedics, sports, neurology, vestibular, geriatrics, pelvic floor, and aquatic? What? Did I just say they have a pool? Well, they do, and it's the largest indoor warm water pool in Lake County, featuring 2 underwater treadmills and swim currents, and recently added clinical treatment specialties, in layman's terms, shockwave. They have both radial and focus units that are the newest tool in regenerative medicine, available to everyone. They pride themselves on the most current and up-to-date specialized care to keep you moving. If you're looking for physical therapy, make sure to see our friends at Grayslake Rehabilitation. Wait. Grayslake has a record store? Are you ready to get into the groove? Well, I've got the perfect place for you with new and used vinyl, CDs, tapes, and more. At Andy's Records, they're not just about the hits. They're about the classics, the B-sides, the hidden gems, the vinyl vibes that make your heart skip a beat. For the record, Andy's is not your average music shop. It's a place where melodies meet memories. Andy's Records, because life sounds better with a little spin. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Discovering Grayslake. I am on the corner of Center Street and Atkinson with our friends and our sponsors here at Agora Co-working. If you need a place to get out of the house or just have an office for a day or have a meeting, Agora is a great place to go. So I have the pleasure here to sit with my friend, the varsity baseball coach at Grayslake Central, Mr. Troy Whalen. How are you, buddy?
Hey, morning, Dave. Thanks for having me.
That's Appreciate a pleasure. It. So when I first texted you, I'm like, I don't know if Troy's going to say yes, he's going to say no. So.
I was happy to say yes. Yeah, I enjoyed listening to when you, I think when you met with our team captains back in June, maybe I think that was, and that was a great listen. And I've listened to a few of the others since then. So appreciate what you're doing for Grayslake and kind of highlighting a lot of businesses and individuals in town. It's awesome.
Thank you, and we appreciate what you do. So before we talk baseball, one of the big reasons I do this show is to get people to know you a little bit better. So tell me I want to know a little bit of history on you and how you get to be a baseball coach.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll give you the short answer. When we moved to Grayslake in the mid-90s, my then neighbor got me involved with youth baseball. He knew I had played baseball in college. And after a couple of years, I got introduced to then the new Grayslake High School. It was just one school at the time. The Grayslake High School coach, Sean Farrell, who's now the softball coach at Libertyville. And I actually ended up coaching a couple of Sean's summer baseball teams, the freshmen and sophomores, and got to know him. And then through that, got to know a lot of the high school kids, and then also got to know the then AD, Troy Harper. So back in 2002, the fall or late summer, Sean got a job at Libertyville High School. And it's not like there were a lot of coaches at that time. I mean, school was just getting started, and Troy Harper knew me. And he was like, hey, do you think you'd be interested? We're kind of short right now. I know the kids. Is this something you'd be interested in, being a varsity coach for like 1 year until we can find somebody else? And I was like, well, and at the time I was actually working in an office environment at Cardinal Health. So that was a little tricky and had to work that out. And I said, I think I can make it work for a year. And
what year is this?
In 21 or something, 20 some years later.
Right.
We're still here. So it kind of came about. I mean, this was never I'd be lying if I said this was a life ambition. Right. But had a okay first year, I guess. And then, I just stayed involved with it. And they asked me to come back for a second year, and I was like, yeah, sure, I think I can make it work. And then third year and fourth year, and then time just starts to fly by.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you kind of it fell into your lap, basically.
Yeah, I think it was just a timing thing, being at the right place at the right time. And I think it was just an issue of really supply and demand at that time. And he just, like I said, Troy Harper reached out, and, he ended up being the AD there. I think that was the only year that I worked under him. He left after that year, and another AD came in, and they just kind of recycled all the coaches through again. So it was
that's great.
Yeah, crazy.
So my big question is, so if anybody knows Troy or anybody has played baseball at Grayslake, they know, and I say this very nicely, what a psycho you are about your field. And
yeah, psycho's the right word. Yeah, that's a good word to use.
So when did you actually get, if you start there, when did you become so super focused about having one of the best baseball fields
Sure, a couple
around?
of things. I think, I grew up in a small town in central Illinois, and my father, God rest his soul, he would mow our grass twice a day. He was just very meticulous about our yard, and I think I picked part of that up just kind of watching him. Mm-hmm. He even wouldn't let me kind of mow the grass at times. And then one of the jobs that I had when I was in college, when I went back to Streeter, is I took care of the fields that were part of Streeter Youth Baseball.
Okay.
And all of a sudden I was like, hey, this is kind of cool, raking and watering a field and tamping a mound. And since then it's just kind of stuck with me. And yeah, I know, we use a lawn service for our own yard, so that allows me to, spend more time on the field, I guess.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So you have somebody take care of your own
yard.
yard.
Exactly. That's not hilarious. Proud of it, but I'm gonna admit to it here. Yeah.
That's funny. So is it true that you have cameras over there too? You don't like people stepping on your field?
Well, there are security cameras over there, yeah, that they can point in that direction. And, look, I think the community knows the cages in the outfield is all good to use.
Right.
Our kids know that if they're going to use the infield, they drag it when they're done with the hand drags and stuff like that. Right. But it's a community field. We want people to use it as long as they respect it and kind of just take care of it when they're done.
I see it as like sacred ground. it really is. I mean, for everybody that's involved in baseball, how it's it's a church for some people.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I mean, something obviously we're proud of, and I know that the kids who've come through the program are proud of, and I think the community's proud of it. And no question, there's been a lot of sweat equity put into it, not only by me, but by a lot of our former players who have taken great pride in it. And quite honestly, our outside maintenance folks at Grayslake Central or D127, these dudes are the best of the best. They provide me with the material, and if I need a couple of rakes and I need clay bricks and I need, paint to spray paint the bases, I mean, they just drop it off.
That's awesome.
And they're awesome. I mean, our field wouldn't look the way it does, in all honesty, without the support we get from our maintenance guys.
That's awesome. I also like how you make the kids take pride in it. And you
yeah.
make them when they're done with practice, everybody has wanted to be a Grayslake baseball player. When they're done with practice, they're not done with practice.
That's correct. I don't think our guys that go on to college probably miss it. I think they enjoy if they go on to play in college and they go somewhere where there's a turf field, because then they don't have to do any work.
Right.
But some of the best stories I get, though, are from some of our pitchers who go away where it's a dirt mound, and they're the first ones to show the other players, no, this is how you clay a mound. And then like the head coach of that college will be like, where'd you learn that? And the kid will be like, hey, that's what we did at Grayslake Central. Right. And the funny story, when we were downstate in 2014, we were playing Springfield Sacred Heart Griffin in the semifinal game. Ended up being a fabulous game. We lost in 10 innings, and they were, I think, number one in the state. Nobody gave us a chance, and we lost 3-2, I think. And a couple of my Grayslake FOPs, Bill Hamrick, Bryce Edwards, they were sitting over by the Springfield Sacred Heart folks, and Springfield's like, hey, Grayslake Central Baseball, what are you guys known for? And without hesitation, Hamrick said pitching, defense, and field maintenance. That's what we do. And that's kind of tongue-in-cheek. And, Coach Tishy likes us to put hitting in there, and I think we hit pretty well, too.
Yeah,
but that's I think that's part of our moniker.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know this to be a fact, but is it the right field grass? Is there any truth to that coming off of Wrigley Field?
Yeah, there is truth to that. I kind of struggle with that a little bit, to be honest, as a Sox fan. Nothing against the Cubs.
Right. Well, that's the only reason you weren't going to be on the show.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
that's fair.
Okay,
you
too.
know, and it's hard being a Sox fan these days. Sorry, Chris Getz, but you're going to have to get some better players in soon. But you know, Vans brought over some sod from Wrigley Field, and they were kind enough to give me the heads up ahead of time. I think jokingly, if I wanted to veto it and not have it put in, but I said no, we need it.
But that's really cool. It's a cool fact about the field. That's awesome.
Yeah, actually, you know, Roger Bossert, who takes care of the White Sox field, he's been up to our field before. You know, he's really known as the Sod Father, and I've got his cell number. And he's taught me a lot about, you know, passion and just the way to do some things. And he's an unbelievable resource. You know, here is an MLB groundskeeper that me as a high school coach, if I wanted to reach out to him and be like, hey, I'm having trouble with an area, what do you recommend I do?
Right.
He'll get right back to me.
That's awesome.
And that's just really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure everybody's sick of hearing about the field. Because,
Probably.
I mean,
except me. I could talk about it. I could talk about it all morning.
We should have just done the field. We could have one episode.
When I get asked to talk at some of the baseball conferences, and they're like, hey, pick a topic, I always want to pick field maintenance. But they're like, talk about something else, Whalen. I'm like, all right, I will. That's
hilarious. So, if people haven't followed Grayslake Baseball, you've had a huge success, especially with the size of our town, the people we play. We've done really well in conference and done really well going downstate. And I know that you, so let's just step back. So your first trip downstate was what year?
09.
And then how did you do that year?
We got third in 09, and then we got third in 2013.
Right.
And then we took fourth in 2014. And then we took second this past year.
Wow. Well, a lot of people say that we didn't take second this year because it wasn't a fair game that we had to play Nazareth.
Yeah.
So
it's all good.
Everybody said,
you know, you got to play who you play. And you know what? I've talked to a lot of people since that game. Mm-hmm. In fact, a couple of Nazareth parents who I know, and have bumped into them, and they were nervous the whole game. You know,
really?
we were a hit away. And I think like most of our teams do, our kids just battled. And sometimes you just got to throw your hands up in the air and be like, it's not your day. And that's all it was. You know, they were a great team. We were a great team. It was a heavyweight fight.
Yes.
And it was pitch for pitch. And it's obviously, you know, something I'll never forget. And I don't think our kids will either.
We're taking a quick break just to say hello because everybody knows Nano. And Nano knows real estate. And actually, I believe that's the name of her Instagram page. So if you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or know somebody in the market for a home, contact Nano from Baird & Warner. She's a Grayslake girl helping out Grayslake people.
No, and what great community support.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's off the top. And that's the other thing that sometimes you take for granted, at least I do, until then you see everybody.
Yeah.
And then when you have some of your peers in coaching say, you know, Whalen, what's going on over there, man? I mean, you guys and I just said, you know, Grayslake's a baseball town, and a lot of people think, you know, we have a magic pill.
Right.
You know, there's no magic pill. I think, you know, quite honestly, more so these days, we get so many passionate kids that want to play baseball, Dave.
Yeah.
I tell our coaches, let's just try not to mess them up when they get into high school.
Right.
Let's let them be them, and I think the thing that we spend the most time on is trying to get them to gel together.
And that's always the hardest part, right?
Yeah.
Because you can have 10 superstars.
Sure.
But if they don't play together, then
just try to get them to, you know, buy into the we versus the me. Right. And it's really not that hard of a pitch. Right. It's really not.
So with that success, I'm sure a lot of that is attributed to all the little league they play.
Unbelievable.
So, and Grayslake youth baseball is unbelievable here.
It's like I said, it's a baseball community, and it's gone through its cycles of high enrollment, maybe low enrollment as the town has changed over. But the number of passionate moms and dads involved with Grayslake youth baseball, and we certainly see it at our camp. And then we also try to have an identity in the community and try to get out to games. You know, to watch some of these kids play. They know who we are. And it's helped, both my boys went through Grayslake Youth Baseball. And, you used the word earlier, community. It's community. And you saw that, and, you see the kids, I love how the younger kids in Grayslake Youth Baseball, how they look up to our high school guys. Oh, and I try to remind our high school guys, man, enjoy that. Yeah, you were them 6 or 7 years ago.
Right.
Try to embrace this, because you're an idol to these guys. You're a role model. And we talk about that a lot. And I think our high school guys have always done a great job. When our kids come to the summer camp, they look at me as Bill Murray in Caddyshack. I'm like mowing the grass. I got a floppy hat on. I'm not a good looking dude anyway, as you know. And they're always like, and I'm sure they go home and tell their mom and dad, yeah, this old guy in this floppy hat talked to us. But we think he's the groundskeeper, because the kids really interact with the players. Right. And that's how it should be.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, that's how it should be.
When you talk about the kids looking up to it, it's funny. I got a couple calls after we did the podcast with the boys.
Sure.
And one of the moms wrote a note in, and her kids that were like 9, 10, and 11 were listening to the podcast. The group of boys.
That's awesome.
And they were talking about what player they wanted to be when they grew up.
That's amazing.
And they were talking about these boys.
That's awesome.
And Chris Rogers signing autographs at these little kids. I have chills.
Yeah,
just thinking about
exactly.
How cool is that?
For youth sports, or for high school non-professional sports. And that's what high school is, just like college, non-professional sports.
Right.
To have the opportunity to be a role model and to make a lasting impression on a very impressionable 9, 10, or 11-year-old.
Right. And those kids,
that's awesome.
Those kids are going to bed dreaming about being those boys.
And that kind of just goes back to what I, mentioned earlier. We get kids that are inspired and excited to wear their green and white. And, it's contagious at the school. Grayslake Central, we hang a lot of plaques and banners for a lot of our sports.
Yes.
So the bench, the bar is pretty high if you're coaching a sport at Grayslake Central. And that's how you want it to be.
Right.
Okay? That's what you want to, that's how it should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, with the success that you've had, how do you continually motivate these kids, especially this group coming up now? Okay, second in state.
Yeah.
There's pressure on you to do well, probably.
Sure.
And we didn't lose a conference game the entire year.
Yeah.
So these kids coming up, there's got to be pressure on you. How do you motivate these kids to do well?
Yeah, on point question there. We talked a lot about this in the summer. We talked a lot about this in the fall. My hope and expectation for our seniors is that they have a huge chip on their shoulder. There's going to be a lot of folks that expect us to fall off the map. Graduating 17 seniors or maybe 18 seniors that got a lot of playing time. But, we still have some talented guys. And, they just had to kind of wait their turn behind some guys that were just better than them in 23. And, as Coach Tishy and I have said, I built the program once, or we've built the program once. Mm-hmm. We have no desire to build it again. Let somebody else do that.
Right.
And if I thought we were in a rebuilding mode, in all honesty, I probably wouldn't have come back.
Yeah.
So I expect us to compete for conference. I expect us to be in the sectional. I expect us, and that's what our players expect.
Yeah.
And that is, as I told the kids, I said, just because we graduated a lot of guys, the bar's not going to lower.
No.
You guys have to get to that bar. And now the goal is, we played in the final game in 3A. Now it's up to the next team, whoever that is, to win the final game in 3A.
Right.
We got over the hump this year to play in the final game. The previous 3 years, we knew what it was like to play in the second to last game.
Right.
Now we've played in the final game, and now we just need to win the final game.
Right.
That's the next goal.
Right. Well, yeah, and then there's you only have one more thing to go.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh my God!
And it's not like it's that easy, but that is it.
No.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge. So with saying that, so I thought personally, your son Brendo, he graduated the year before. You do the best in Grayslake history. I was expecting to hear Troy Whalen's going to retire.
Yeah. I take it year by year with a lot of the balance between, my professional life, family, what's kind of going on. I really enjoy coaching. I enjoy coaching more today than I probably did 10 years ago.
Really?
And I think I get it better.
Right.
I think as we get older, we hope we get a little wiser. We learn from our mistakes. I have a much better appreciation in coaching today of understanding what it means to control what you can control, and to not lose sleep and get aggravated over things you can't control. I didn't understand that 10 years ago.
So you think your coaching style has changed over the last 10 years?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, a lot of my former players that come back and watch us in the postseason, and I can't say it here, but there's a word that they call me, but let's just say they say, Whalen, you're really mellow now. I can't believe you didn't get on that kid for missing a sign. And I just shrug my shoulders and I'm just like, yeah, that's just not what we do. But I think part of that is, kids have changed too, and not for the worse. I mean, it's, society's different today. Society continues to evolve, not just in athletics, but in all the other aspects of life. And I think part of a coach's responsibility is you have to adjust to the personnel and the mind share that you have with the kids that you have.
Right.
And some kids respond to a kick in the butt sometimes. Some kids, you just need to put your hand on their shoulder and just remind them that tomorrow's a new day.
Right.
And I know I know my own kid, coaching him, just like other kids, it would be a balance of both. Some days he responded better to a pretty hard, kind of shove verbally. And other days you just needed to pick him up off the ground and say, today wasn't your day. Go get it tomorrow.
And I've observed you doing that. 'Cause I know that there's certain kids that you could completely yell at, and that's what motivates them.
Yeah.
But another kid, you may lose them completely. If
and
you
you could, yeah. And I mean, and you try to learn from your mistakes. Our dugout club. True story. I mean, that's recent. Our dugout club does a golf outing every year.
Yes.
Raises a lot of money, and that's why our field looks the way it does, and softballs, right? I think this past year, the weather was not good, but we still had 136 plus golfers that showed up in the rain, and over 40 of those were alumni kids. And that just blew me away. And I think that was the highest we had so far. And I had a chance to have a sidebar conversation with some of our 06 and 07 graduates. And our 06 team, that was the first team to win a sectional. And, I could talk about that all day. But we had a great sidebar out there at Stonewall Orchard. And they commented, yeah, hey, coach, saw you play. Boy, you're a little mellow now. And I said, guys, I said, I owe every one of you, and there was 5 of them. I said, I owe every one of you guys an apology for how I treated you at times. And the kids are like, no, coach, that's just the kind of team we were. We needed that. And I said, well, it's nice of you to say, but I probably could have balanced it out a little different and a little better.
Sure.
And so you try to learn from your mistakes. And I don't think any coach wants to, make a player feel bad or make them run from the sport that they're coaching. And sports are emotions, and it's full of emotions. And I think I've tried to better channel my emotions on the positive side, as opposed to, now that doesn't mean I'm not biting my tongue. That doesn't mean that my assistant coaches aren't talking me off the ledge, because they're the ones that get the brunt of my frustration now, not the kids.
Right.
But they're adults and they can handle that. So I appreciate what, Tishy and, Coach Schufrider put up with, because I'm usually, we were in Florida this past year, and I can't remember the last time we lost 2 games in a row. We lost to Deerfield. We go to Florida. First game we lose. I was not pleasant to be around. And I remember we were sitting at a restaurant in Universal, and I'm looking at the stats over 2 games, and Bill and Tony are looking at me like, Whalen, it's 2 games. We're going to be okay. You guys don't know what you're talking about. I'm ready to just, I'm ready to bring sophomores up when we get back. That's me having to get that out of my system
Right.
with the coaches.
That's funny.
As opposed to getting it out of my system with the players. But, back to kind of what you said. Yeah, I kind of go year by year, but I really enjoy.
So you don't see an end.
Piece.
You're not.
Oh no, there's always an end every year.
Right.
Like I said, there's an end every year, and there'll be a lot of factors that'll determine what happens. It's a little bit easier this year, Dave, with Brendan going. Just being real, with Brendan going to CLC, it's not a 3.5 hour drive to watch him play, and it was tough for me last year, missing him when he was pitching, because I felt that he needed me there for support at times, because it's college baseball, it's different, and he got it handed to him a few times like most college players do, and I wasn't there to kind of pick up the pieces and maybe talk about it post game afterwards and share a meal, and those are days you never get back.
I know.
It was a lot easier when the kids were younger to still coach, because they're in Grayslake and I live close to the field, so I could shoot to Allegheny, I could shoot to JC Park, all those types of things. Full transparency, if he was still down at Lakeland this year, I'd have been done coaching.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going to miss all those games this year.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. But with him being at CLC, they play at noon. I can get to the field,
right?
As opposed to I would drive to Mattoon.
Now we could walk together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would drive to Mattoon. He'd be throwing for a noon game. I'd watch him throw 5 or 6 innings, and then I'd be back in the car to make it for a 4:30 game here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And shout out to a lot of the state troopers who let me off my speeding ticket when I told them what I was trying to do. So I appreciate that to the state of Illinois.
That's funny. I want to ask you too, because so obviously my son Max went through the whole program and growing up, and now my little guy Jackson's going to go through the whole thing. So there's always so much talk and pressure put on these kids. I think like when they get out, when it turns into travel, and if you want to play for Coach Whalen, if you're going to play for Grayslake High School, you have to do these certain things to make it there. So I'd like you to give advice to parents or young players out there. How important is travel baseball? What things they need to do? Is there something they shouldn't do to be considered for?
Yeah, there's always going to be a stigma associated with if you're not playing for the Rams baseball club, or if you're playing in-house, or if you're playing for another travel team that that works against you. And I could print T-shirts that say otherwise.
Right. Well, this year was a testament to that.
But it wouldn't matter. I mean, that stigma's always going to exist. As long as I know when I put my head on the pillow at night, that's not the case.
Right. And
I could go preach that on a mountain. But to answer your question directly, go play baseball. I don't care who you play for. And I mean that. I think just like in high school, whether it's youth baseball or youth sports, travel sports, there's a lot of good coaches out there, and there's a lot of coaches that aspire to be good coaches, and then there's always a percentage that maybe it's just not a good fit for them as a coach.
Right.
And but the important thing is we're all about a funnel and trying to get as many kids into that funnel at the top. Mm-hmm. Because eventually that funnel widens or narrows as you go through it.
Yeah.
But if you're only putting 2 or 3 kids in a funnel, then you only got 2 or 3 kids to work with when they get in the funnel. You put 23 kids in the funnel.
Right.
Now, not all 23 are going to be varsity players. Some are going to choose to do something else. Kids develop at a different age. Unfortunately, some kids get hurt. Things happen that are out of your control. But you've got to keep the funnel full. And the only way to keep the funnel full is you have to open your arms to anybody, irregardless of where or who they're playing baseball for. Right. And that's always been our mantra. Right.
And I've been a firm believer that the keeping these kids in a Grayslake program, they're still playing baseball, but the camaraderie,
it doesn't hurt.
They're used to playing with each other. And
many high school coaches have said, gosh, I wish we could pull off what you guys pull off. And at the end of the day, I don't know how much longer we can pull it off because it is a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
and but you got to have the volunteers. I mean, guys like, and I could name so many names, but when we started the Rams Baseball Club, my good friend Mark Ruhlman was one of the first presidents when Grayslake and Grayslake North then decided to have 13 U teams that my oldest was a part of, Brett. And, Steve Sturm picked it up after Mark Ruhlman, after his son got into high school and kept it going.
Right.
And now Jeff Woods, and there'll be somebody after Jeff Woods. But these are just passionate parents who, they're not looking for anything extra. They're donating their time, and the Rams Baseball Club, like the Dugout Club, they have a board. I mean, these people and they're finding tournaments for kids, and they're trying to establish fees, and they're getting uniforms and all this stuff. It takes a village. Okay.
Amen.
It takes a village, and at the end of the day, our program's the recipient of that.
Right.
It really is.
So note to parents, be nice to those volunteers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an imperfect world when it comes to that.
No, and coaching baseball is, even at the little league level, like when I coach, because I had the opportunity to coach this year's senior team, like those guys all through everything.
That's awesome.
But the hardest thing, even back in the day, like at a little league level, with parents complaining because their kid doesn't get enough playing time, and then they get to varsity. I think it's a different mindset of things. I'm sure that you still get slack about it if kids don't get enough playing time here or play there.
And I get it. At our March meeting, our kickoff, and I've said this for years. I said, everybody here, I can tell you the one thing that all of us here in the room share, and I'm talking about, when the parents are all in there.
Right.
You want us to play the 8 best kids and your kid. And everybody kind of looks at each other and they're like,
what a great way to put it.
Did he just kind of like insult us? Semi? Not really, but that's the reality. And look, I'm a parent, okay? Watching my kid get pooled in a basketball game growing up, or even in high school or in youth baseball, and you're just, you can't take the parent out of us.
Correct.
Okay. And so I get that. And I think I get that a lot more now. And I will tell you, I have a goal, and I tell our coaches, we have a goal every varsity game to play 15 kids. Now, does that mean you can't play 15 kids all 7 innings?
No.
But that's the goal.
Right.
And, I had a couple of coaches say at the state tournament when we were up 9-1, Whalen, we were worried when you put a bunch of subs in. And I'm like, thought never crossed my mind, because I knew that we had a deep team all year.
Very deep.
You don't win 20 games in a row playing the same 9 guys.
No.
When you're playing awesome. 4 games a week. And depth was our strength. Mm-hmm. And thought never, now if, had we ended up losing the game, but that would have been on me and not on the players. Right. And as a coach, I can live with that. I don't want the players feeling that it was on them. And as I told the kids after we lost to Nazareth, I said, guys, this was on me. We needed 3 things to happen when we played Nazareth. Knowing that man for man, just based on pedigree, they were probably better. Or at least the stats would say they had 71 kids, et cetera, and Lee does a great job with those guys. We needed to play well. We needed to maybe be the beneficiary of a 50-50 umpire call.
Correct.
And we needed to make sure balls that they barreled would be hit at us.
Right.
We didn't play our best game. Umpire had nothing to do with it from either side. Naz had 10 hits that game. 4 of them never left the infield. So when you're the better team and you're getting swinging bunts, that's like I said earlier, you throw your hands up in the air. But you know what? As I told the kids, I didn't coach a very good game. And there were some things that I should have done differently, that if I could do it again, whether it was a substitution, making a pitching change at a different time. I said, guys, that's on me. I said, that's not on you. I mean, I own that. And that'll haunt me.
Right, but who knows on this decision?
Right.
If it would have gone the right way, then you made the great choice, right?
Yep.
But now because it didn't, then
right.
But you seem like a guy that's hard on himself, and you don't like to lose.
Still can't let that go. Yeah, right.
You don't like to lose.
No, I don't.
Okay, I have an interesting question for you because I was doing a lot of the social media as we won 10 games, 11 games, 12 games. So we get up to you get these kids up to winning 20 games, and then we come to that 21st game.
Yeah.
Is there any part of you that wanted to lose and not have these guys all cocky?
I'm not going to directly answer that.
Right.
But look, I don't care who you're playing.
Yep.
To win 20 games in a row in baseball,
It's almost impossible.
It is. And I'm a big fan of the movie Moneyball. And when you think of how many games in a row that they won, and I mean, everybody has their day. I felt pretty confident that we were going to probably get a loss going into the postseason.
Right.
Could I have managed that game maybe a little differently? But it was a non-conference game. Richmond has a really good team. I think the world of Mike and what he does over there, and their pitcher was on. He threw a great game.
He did.
And you got to just tip your hat to them. And, we played a deep group of guys like we had been. And you're also trying to balance it out with the rest and in the emotion. And the one thing that I'll say on that game aside, we talk a lot about, and I don't think until you put the uniform on, you truly understand. Everybody wants to beat us, Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And that you wouldn't want it any other way. We're the marquee opponent.
I heard the boys say so many times, Coach said everybody's after us.
Everybody wants to beat. We have the saying, everybody wants to beat, and then the kids say the Ram. When schedules come out, we believe we're circled on team schedules for non-con. And so when people are bringing their very best at you every game, and baseball is not like football where you're playing once a week and then you're going to just, kind of rest your body and then motivate kids 2 or 3 days so that come Friday they have all this energy and they just want to go out and hit somebody.
Right.
Baseball is a marathon. You're playing 4 days a week. 75% of the time the weather's terrible. You got multiple layers of clothes. There's half the time I don't want to be out there.
Right.
And I'm like, I wish I was just sitting in Starbucks because it would be warmer. And but I think we have good home field advantage. But at the same time, teams play better when they come to our place because of our field.
Right.
Okay. It's like when
you're not getting bad hops.
Yeah, and it's just I think it's just the atmosphere and the electricity. Sure. So I'm not sure we have the best home field around in terms of home field advantage, but we get everybody's best shot.
Right.
And you can't ask for it. And that's getting up every day when you play, and you're taking everybody's, and that's a life lesson.
Yes.
The world stops for nobody. You might have been great on Monday. You got to get up and be great on Tuesday.
Right. Yeah, you're only as good as your last appearance.
Exactly.
Yeah, I say that a lot, and that applies to everything in life.
Yep.
With that 21st game, when people beat the Rams, they celebrate.
Yes, they do.
Those people like they won the World Series.
Yeah.
They were crazy happy that they, but it's a big thing. But those kids have so much pride too, especially.
Yeah.
Even watching before Max was in there.
Yeah.
Man, we've had some runs that have been amazing. Do you? We're gonna switch gears here in 1 second. Tell me do you have a favorite memory from last year?
Wow.
And now I want to say last year because this episode, one thing will be on here forever.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the 2022-23 season.
Yeah. So
season.
the favorite memory from last year, I think you're looking for a compelling event. It'll have to be the pitch that your son threw on the ball that the kid hit, that Jack Gerbasi caught in foul territory, and then Jack held up his glove as he was
running
down the third base line,
Yep.
and the kids celebrating. And I remember walking out of the dugout, and my heart was beating faster than I could ever remember. And I'm like, man, I may go down. Where's the AED? And I just kind of took one knee and just tried to have a moment to myself for about 10 seconds to kind of be like, we had busted through. And for the rest of my life, I'll remember that pitch, and I'll remember that catch, and I'll remember the emotion kind of after it. So it would have to be that. Yeah. And a lot of great moments obviously leading up to that, but it would have to be that.
Yeah, and I think the most scared person in the place when that pitch got thrown was probably me standing on the side.
It's in the blood.
With Max.
It's in the blood. Yeah, right?
And it's the worst thing if you've ever played baseball to watch your kid play baseball.
It is.
You're like helpless.
Yeah, you are helpless.
Can't do anything at all.
Yeah, the nerves are always running. So yeah, it would have been that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. All right, so we're switching gears here, and if you've listened to podcasts, you know that we have we call this the Grayslake Hot Seat.
Uh-oh.
And the hot seat's brought to us by Barbecue Productions in Third Lake. Got my friend Chris over there. If you're looking for great barbecue,
I'm not sure my agent agreed to this. But we'll
we
see.
didn't sign off on this.
That's all good.
So they're easy questions.
I'm sure.
Okay, so this help people. If there's a story that goes with something, please help. Question number 1. If you had to have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I'd love to be invincible.
Invincible?
Yeah.
That's probably the best one that you can come up with.
I'd love to be invincible.
Covers all categories.
Exactly.
Tell me a place that you'd like to travel you've never been. You can't say Joliet.
Yeah, no. I've never been, I've been fortunate enough to travel to a lot of places. I'd love to go down to like New Zealand.
Yeah. That's on my list too.
Yeah.
What was your favorite TV show growing up? You should see the look on his face.
Yeah. Favorite TV show growing up. So I'm looking at,
This shows your age as well.
It does. You know what? I'm a Trekkie. So I would probably say like Star Trek or like Batman, like watching that. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I enjoyed that.
Who's the funniest person you know?
Wow. Funniest person I know? It'd have to be my friend Kevin Morrissey. I coached with Kevin and his boys, and some of the one-liners that dude would sling out when we were coaching travel ball together back in the day, I can still bust a stitch over. Awesome. I'd be like, I can't repeat most of them, but man, I'll tell you what, he should have been a comedian. He would have been like on Cinemax or Showtime. He wouldn't have been on regular TV.
Right.
But man, oh man, did he have some good stuff.
That's awesome. What was your first car?
Chevy Chevette. That's
how
old I am. Yeah, I'm
Wow.
not proud of it.
Yes, anybody that if you're
I'm
young,
old.
you don't. Well, we're not going there.
Go Google it. Yeah, it's not a good looking car at all.
The Chevette.
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Do you have a hidden talent?
Yeah, I do.
What is it?
I love Christmas, and I can pretty much sing any Christmas song.
Do you want to do
No.
those?
And only because I don't think that's going to help your ratings.
No.
So yeah.
Or yours, maybe.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. Yeah.
If you had to write a book, what would it be about?
Overcoming adversity and how to we're thrown. Sometimes we cause our own adversity, and other times there's things that just pop up that we have to get over. And, I would write a series of short stories pertaining to a lot of different things that occur over a person's life on how you deal with and then overcome adversity.
Beautiful. I'd love to see that and read it. Would the 12-year-old version of yourself think you're cool?
Yes.
Like that. Do you have a nickname?
TW.
All right. What do you wish that you'd learned sooner in life?
Algebra. I went through it, but I'm just like, I wish I would have paid more attention to math growing up. I just put it that way.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this is my favorite one because it's the most appropriate one. What was your first pet's name?
Pepper.
And then what is the street that you grew up on?
Sterling. So that would be my whatever.
Yeah, your adult.
Pepper Sterling.
Pepper Sterling is your adult film name.
Beautiful beagle.
It's funny because Troy already knew where I was going. So yes.
Yeah, I did.
Have you ever ate a roller dog from a gas station?
I don't even know what that is.
You know the hot dogs that roll on
no,
the things at the gas station?
You know what? No. I mean, if I'm going to eat something off of those machines at the gas station, it's going to be pizza. Because I think you never have a bad piece of pizza at a gas station. Just saying.
There you go. You heard it from the man.
Yeah.
What's your middle name?
Michael.
If you had to have a theme party at your house, what would it be?
Everybody dressed like their favorite 90210 character.
This is getting better and better as we go.
Or Melrose Place.
Oh.
I loved those shows.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
In college, we used to sit across and we would all watch it at the same time and we would yell from apartment to apartment.
I was out in L.A. last week, actually out in Hollywood for that area for work, and drove right down Melrose Place right by it. I was like, hey.
This is awesome.
Hey, maybe Jane or Michael are hanging out in the apartment building. I don't know.
That's hilarious. From 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
7.
Okay. Did you play a sport in high school?
Yeah, baseball, basketball.
Baseball, basketball. This is my favorite question, which is completely worthless, but it's my show, so I do it.
Sure.
From 1 to 10, 10 being the most likeliest, what do you think the chance that Bigfoot exists?
Yeah, I know you're a big. You know what? I'm gonna. It's greater than 5. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna say greater than 5. I remember when the Sasquatch knocked around Steve Austin in the Bionic Man episode,
and that was
he
real.
Threw him around. That was real, man.
I know.
Yeah, I'm showing my age again.
And we've covered a lot of TV shows.
Yeah, exactly. You grew up in Central Illinois. There's not a lot to do, man.
I'm not even going any further with that. What is your favorite Grayslake event to attend?
I love any of the Firehouse pancake breakfasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do. You know, I remember, taking the kids there when they were younger. It's harder to get them to go now, but I just think, you see people that maybe you haven't seen in a while, and there's just something about eating pancakes in a firehouse, and I know GYBA did the pancake breakfast for the longest time. And you see that big pancake circular thing, and it's just got all those pancakes on it. It's like something that's ingrained in your head that you never get rid of. And you know what? Those pancakes taste really good.
They were really good.
Yeah.
I've been to a ton of those.
Yeah.
If you and I were going to go watch a sporting event in Grayslake and have a beer, where would we go?
Oh, we'd go out to Allegheny. There's great views out there, and we would sit up on top of where the other fields are. And we would have a beverage and watch the games down below.
See? If you had to go to a bar in Grayslake, where would you go?
I got to say Eagles, obviously.
I've never seen you there.
Yeah, just depending. And, I used to be able to stay out past 8 o'clock, and as I'm getting older, I just can't.
So I know the answer to this one, but what's your favorite podcast episode of mine that you've listened to?
Yeah, it would have been with our kids. I thought our kids did a great job.
They did.
And I was really impressed when they didn't give out any trade secrets or anything like that toward the end when you were trying to get them to put some dirt on me. They were tight-lipped. And I was like, good job, boys. They knew. Yeah.
And it was fun because, and in doing that one, because we know how parents are, that there were the 4 captains of the team.
Yeah.
And that's why we chose them to be on there. And my son was upstairs and not involved in it. Yeah. Just shout out to my fairness at the same time.
Yeah.
When you eat tacos, do you turn your head to the left or the right?
Right.
I'll have one more. Okay, so if you had, I might know the answer to this. So a famous person comes to Grayslake and you get to bring him. Where would you take somebody that hasn't been to Grayslake? Where would you take him first in our town?
Oh, I'd take him to our field.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a 2-foot putt question there, Dave.
Yeah. Some of these aren't very hard for you. A couple of questions. So I was talking to Sean Fitzgerald before everything. So we were talking about baseball.
What a tremendous individual.
Oh my
family.
God, that family just
unbelievable. Sean's still on the unofficial payroll. He takes our cages down, does all this stuff. He's awesome, man. He's just awesome.
If you want to talk about a baseball family from
Yes.
Grayslake,
Yes.
and probably I always tell those guys, I'm like, you make all of us other parents look bad. They're just the best. They're the best couple, the best parents. I can't say enough about them. And the Fitzgeralds are not a sponsor of the show, by the way.
Right.
What's your favorite baseball movie?
Major League.
Awesome.
Yeah. Major League or Bull Durham. One of those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just watch them.
Anytime they're on, I can always watch them. Yeah.
Who's your favorite baseball player of all time?
Growing up, I kind of was a Dodgers fan, believe it or not. But obviously, being a White Sox fan, Harold Baines was my favorite player. Got a chance to watch him quite a bit, and really had an affinity for how he played the game. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we're going to end that because the other ones I already know all the answers
Sure.
to. So thanks to Barbecue Productions and Third Lake for sponsoring the hot seat. So I want to, because we have such a great community, and I know people get annoyed, and from the parents to the people that what I'm getting to is fundraising for baseball. I want you to explain to people how important that is. I mean, from these wreath sales to people are going door to door. They're coming to your house. They're going to businesses, and then it's like a revolving cycle.
Yeah, and it's a big ask on a lot of people. Businesses and the community. I think that I'll just speak directly to the wreaths. The kids did a great job again this year. A little bit down from last year, but we still, as a unit, I think sold over 1,100 items.
Holy cow!
Yeah, we're always over 1,000.
Wow.
I mean, and our partners, Northwoods Wreaths, Andy, and those guys are the best of the best. I think the fundraising piece for our kids, it gives you a sense of ownership in the organization.
Right.
I understand that for some people, the easiest thing you can do is write a check. For some people, right. I get it. But you're representing a brand. I think it's become well known that if you drive around Grayslake today and you see wreaths and garland on houses, chances are probably ours.
Right. And where does that money go to when people are doing this?
Yeah, so it goes directly to our kids' Florida trip towards their individual balances for Florida.
Right. Otherwise, and I used to yell at my son that if he didn't sell wreaths, if he didn't do this fundraising, then I get to write.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You try to get to kids and be like, guys, I understand that at your age, real money feels like monopoly money, okay? But your parents can't give me monopoly money for tender that I can apply towards your trip to Florida.
Right.
And it gets harder and harder every year because the costs continue to go up. And you hope that it doesn't get to the point where the costs just prohibit you from going down there, because there's things, we can't control the airline costs, right? But when the seniors do their thing at the end of the year and they talk about, and they print that little program book that's at the senior night when the senior awards banquet, right? When all the seniors are together. No, obviously that takes place before your state tournament run and your postseason. But when you go down and you ask the baseball guys, tell me about your favorite, most memorable baseball moment.
Yeah.
80% of them say Florida.
I know.
I mean, and it's not even about the game. It might be something about, oh yeah, so-and-so ate 6 donuts in the span of a minute and he threw it up over somebody in Universal Studios. Or, I mean, those kind of memories, again, like we talked about before, last a lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's where the orange is worth the squeeze. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of work. There's a lot of stress on the coaches to, get these kids through security and get them there. And every year we go to Florida. My first day there, I hate it. I want to come home. I'm stressed out because traveling with the number of guys is stressful. Then we got to get organized. By the second to last day, I'm sad because the trip's over. Because I'm like, it's such a fast week. And I'm like, I wish we were staying longer.
Yeah. So I want to personally thank everybody who buys those wreaths, who donates things, because with having a kid get to go to Florida twice, even that little check there, right, where they're buying a $35 wreath or any of these fundraiser things,
they add up.
You are contributing to an experience that's going to last, a memory that's going to last a lifetime for these boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's wonderful.
And we try to, as a program, we don't generally fundraise for like what I would call baseball equipment and things like that. If I want baseball equipment or I want to do something, we run that through our camps. Okay. Mm-hmm. If we're asking kids to go sell something, they're going to get something in return, whether or not it's swag, whether or not it's the Florida stuff.
Right.
I do put some of that money aside for my freeze account. Most adults run a bar tab. I run a Tasty Freeze tab. All right. I mean, it's just the reality. And I got to get on some of my former players who go there and say, put it on Whalen's tab. And I'm like, you guys graduated 4 years ago. You're no longer eligible for that tab.
You're not on the tab anymore.
And awesome. John over there will be like, hey man, I had a kid here, man. He had a full beard and had a family, and he said he was still in the program. I go, yeah, no, he sounds like a graduate, John.
Anything for free? It's Tasty Freeze, man.
It is. Yeah. Never seen kids get more excited over ice cream.
You know what? And it's fun. And
it is.
We start bribing that with them.
I love
from
it.
young.
Yeah, exactly.
All the way
but
up.
But again, just another community thing.
Right. So how can other people get involved? You talk about the Dugout Club. So how can people help out? What does the Dugout Club do for baseball?
Yeah.
How can other people get
great
involved?
question. So the Dugout Club was started years ago by a passionate group of individuals. Mike Gentile, Steve Gargano, Don DeRue, and I'm going to forget some names, so I apologize. But, Dave Kulagowski. And it was formed as a capital committee club with the mission to essentially raise money for things on the softball and baseball field that would fall outside of normal district fiscal responsibilities. So, a baseball field has to have a fence, right?
Right.
But if you want a brick wall, that's something a little special. That's what a Dugout Club does. Your fields should have bleachers, but if you want stadium seats, that's a little extra.
Right.
So that's kind of what the Dugout Club does. And their golf outing is their big fundraiser. Outside of that, that's about it. I know, volunteerism in general is it's hard to find. People just don't have the time, right? Or they just and like our booster club at Grayslake Central, who just paid for our new windscreen that'll be going up. It's a core group of individuals that they're cooking a lot of hot dogs and hamburgers, and we try to my ask of any high school parent who happens to listen to this, find the night to work in the concession stand,
okay,
whether it's outside or inside, because, people go to a basketball game, they expect the concession stand to be open.
Right.
That's just part of it.
And the people that are complaining about it not being open are the people that don't volunteer.
Exactly. So, find that night,
right,
or find that Saturday where you can go and help them, because for the Booster Club, they're operating like a business 5 to 6 days a week because there's always an event going on.
Exactly.
Right? In the winter it's wrestling and basketball, and in the spring when you're outdoors, you got tennis, you got lacrosse, you got track and field, you got softball, you got baseball, you got soccer.
Right. There's always
pick a day.
Right.
And
so volunteer.
Please.
Volunteer.
Yeah.
Yes. And then that's a huge thing you can do.
It is.
So as we're wrapping up too, it's funny that my son Jackson's been with T-ball, and so he's in his first Pinto year. And it's so funny to watch because it makes me think back. Actually, funny thing is Jackson's first Pinto game, 4 varsity players were there.
That's awesome.
Talking about the kid who thought he was the coolest kid in the world.
Man.
And people like these kids turn around and look at these, and they're wearing their jerseys. They're like, celebrities walking in there. But it's fun to watch how the Pinto years, as parents, to get the kids involved early, to keep them going, to play catch in the backyard. Yeah. Like, these are such important things, especially to be, and keeping it fun. I think that's, I've heard you say it a bunch of times. It has to be fun or the kids aren't going to play, right?
If it's not fun, you're not going to have the sustainability. You can fake it a day or two. It's like anything, I counsel my kids, who are, as they're getting jobs or as former players come back and, if I'm a reference for them and they're talking about a career opportunity, and it is a roller coaster ride, but if that roller coaster ride has more downs than ups, you got to take a step back and say, is it me? Is it the people around me, or is this not a good fit? And when it pertains to athletics, boy, you got to have fun, because if it feels like a grind and it feels like a job, you probably should do something else, because life's too short.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think especially baseball, that for parents especially, you have to remember it's a game, right?
Yeah.
And
I forget that, but at times.
At that level.
Yeah, but no, you're right.
But getting the kids to there, like the parents that maybe push too hard, or you got to take these lessons and the kids don't want to go to baseball lessons, like, I think they're kids, right?
They are.
Yeah. Don't scare them away from it.
Try to encourage them to try a lot of different things.
Right.
And they'll choose their path.
They will.
And sometimes that path might not be what you want them to do. And as a parent, you might try to softly push them in a direction.
Well, sure.
Which is okay.
Right.
But at the end, it'll be their decision.
Yeah. Because I don't know what I would do if my little guy grew up and he didn't want to play baseball.
I hear you. Yeah. Especially if he can play. Right.
It's not a mystery that the people are buying gloves and bats for Christmas.
Exactly.
Really, it's your choice.
Yeah, it's your choice. But hey, anything under the tree there, it's all baseball related, but It's still your choice.
Last one, and I wanted to touch on this. That something you made me think of when you talk about all these sports. It seems that high school sports have changed, like from there used to be a lot of 3-sport athletes going on, and it seems like nowadays that people really want to specialize in one sport.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? I know that your son played, and Brendo played.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's an added advantage if you're playing multiple sports from a competitive standpoint. You're in a structure standpoint and a teamwork standpoint, but at the same time, and I'm going to kind of talk about this out of both sides of my mouth, if you're playing a sport to just play the sport and you're not getting anything out of it, you got to take a step back and say, should I be doing something else to enhance the one that I'm most passionate about?
Right.
Okay, and there's I think there's different answers, for people. If you would have told me 5 years ago that my son would be playing college baseball, I would have bet the house against it. Basketball was always his passion from the time that he could put a Nerf basketball in his hand.
Yeah.
And my greatest joy for him was watching him play basketball, not baseball.
Yeah.
And at some point he chose baseball. But in my opinion, had he stayed with basketball, he would have had a pretty good collegiate career in basketball.
Really?
Yeah. But at some point I think he saw his path for baseball. That's not that I pushed him down it. And like I said, I still smile and smirk, thinking about all the basketball games he played, because deep down I'm a basketball dude. Okay, and I ref basketball. I'll watch more basketball on TV than I will baseball.
Really?
Just being honest. So yeah, I love college basketball, and that's I'm not gonna say it's my favorite sport, but I like basketball. Just leave it at that. Yeah.
And speaking of Brendo too, like how, and we're gonna end here.
Sure.
How hard was it to have him on your team?
Brendo made it very easy for me.
Did he?
And as I gotten as the years have gone by, he's been out of the program for 2 years. I probably don't thank him enough for that. The one thing I always wanted to maintain is that if you were a family or a husband and wife and you're walking down the path by our first base dugout and you see us practicing and you decide to stop and watch practice for 90 minutes, you would never know he was my kid based on how you treat everybody.
Right.
Brendo made it very easy on me. And because he was a great team guy, he worked hard, and I was just by natural, I was harder on him than I was harder on other kids because at times I couldn't separate the dad and coach. But what a privilege it was to be able to coach both my boys.
Yeah.
He, I never got a chance to coach Kelsey in softball. That was probably a good thing for her. I don't know a whole lot about softball. So, but Brendo made it very easy on me. And, I smile when I think about the times that, I got to, he and I got to wear the uniform at the same time.
Yeah.
Very special.
And some really emotional moments.
Exactly.
Years
Very
too.
special. Very special.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Troy, thank you so much for joining us today. Anything else you want to share with the community?
No, this was fun. Just, thank you, Grayslake community, for all your support, for all Grayslake athletics, and wish everybody a happy holidays. And today's weather, we would hope to have weather like this in April.
We wish, other than playing in snowstorms.
Right, exactly.
Right.
We'll see you in the spring.
Yes. All right.
Take care.
Folks, thank you so much for listening. Whatever podcast platform you're listening on, make sure to subscribe, whether you're on Apple, whether you're on Spotify, either listening on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And once again, I will encourage everybody, no matter what you're doing in our community, make sure to go and volunteer, whether it's for anything, for the school, for the community, anything, because that's what we always say, it takes a village. So, and that makes the world go round. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see everybody next Tuesday.